Okay, y'all, I swear, I was just jabbering away and thought we were recording, and no, I wasn't. So, I think that happens to everybody at some point, y'all. So, let me bring y'all up to speed here. I'm putting together the wet ingredients for the Kyphi, and what is in here is, it's about a fourth of a part of honey, so it's really like a good drizzle of honey. So a fourth of a part of honey. It's one heaping mashed down part of dates, and one part raisins. Sorry, y'all. Now, what I am going to put in here now is the saffron. There we go, and I'll mix that up here in just a second. And to that, there is 5 parts wine. You want to use a rich, deep, dark wine. I use port. I make homemade port, so that's what I'm using is port. If you don't have port, don't make wine, don't want to do anything like that. You just want to use a really deep, dark, colored wine, and it's just going to, it's going to lend to the color of your incense, also the smell a bit. Now, right now, I am not going to put in my lotus oil. The lotus oil is pretty much the very last thing that I put in there. I put it in after all of this is sat, and the reason I do that is because this, after it sits, I'm going to boil it down a bit to soften that fruit up just a little bit more. I will boil it down, make it a bit thicker before I add it into my dry incense ingredients. Also, something to note is if you let this sit a while, and sometimes something that can happen is that your dry fruit that's in here will kind of absorb a lot of your wine. And if that happens, just add a little more wine in there. It's not going to hurt. This is not precise. It's not like you're making a cake or something that you have to be exact with your measurements, y'all. If, for example, it feels right for you to put 7 parts of wine in there, put 7 parts in there, Go with your gut. All right, y'all. Ooh. A bee just flew in. I've got my door open. There's a bee in here, y'all. Okay. I'm going to put my lid on here. If you use this type of lid, make sure you get it on really tight, because sometimes these will leak just a little bit. Shake it. I'm going to shake it a couple of times a day. I'm going to keep it where I can see it. Shake it a couple of times a day. And I'll be back whenever it's time to boil this down a bit and put this with our dry ingredients. There's no exact amount of time that this needs to sit in here. Really, all you're doing is letting this sit in here until, you rehydrate your fruit. Oh, shoot. I need to close that door, y'all. Bugs are coming in. Until you rehydrate your fruit. So if you want to, if you're sitting down to make this incense in a day, you can, but just make sure your fruit is well hydrated, rehydrated with your wine before you start putting your stuff together. I just let it sit because it seems like the longer you let this incense sit and kind of brew and mix together, the better it smells. I have some Kyphi incense up there. I make this about every year. Sometimes I don't get to it every year. Sometimes it's more like a couple times a year. But I do have a batch of Kyphi that is going on 4 years old, y'all. And that stuff smells fabulous. I love it. Sorry. I was looking to see where that bug went. All right, y'all. Be back. Alright guys, so the previous 2 clips I know didn't have any sound. I recorded them on a day that was not a very good recording day, but I had to do it anyway in order to get this finished so I could sit it out under the full moon. What is in here is your wine, honey, raisin, dates, and saffron mixture. You need to let that sit at least a few days, and basically so your fruit can rehydrate. Then you're going to boil it down. In those 2 clips, what I was showing you all was basically when I had first put the fruit into my little kettle and simmered it. You don't want to boil this hard. You just want it at a nice low simmer, low and slow, y'all. A double boiler would have been even better, especially if you're not going to be able to like stand right over it. It just so happens I was doing a lot of stuff in the kitchen that day, so I was right there anyway. So you want to kind of simmer this for a while, y'all. It just so happens mine ended up simmering for about 3 hours. Now, pretty much you just want to keep that on heat until your fruit starts to fall apart. And that's what I did. Every now and then, occasionally, I would add a little more wine into the mixture when it got down too thick. And I just continued adding a little bit of wine to it until the raisins and dates started getting mushy. And I squished it all up. Now, let me show you all. So you want it all down into like a thick, it's like a jam consistency, y'all. That's pretty much how I do mine. Now, I know some people take and strain this mixture just to get any little bit of pulp out. I don't. What I do is I mash all of that down the best that I can mash it, and then I take my immersion blender. I have an immersion blender that I use just for incense and so stuff like that. I took that to it, but if you cook it for as long as I cooked it, you're really not going to have a whole lot of stuff in there. You're not going to have any really huge chunks that you have to deal with because it'll cook apart, y'all. So look how thick that is. Now what I did was, after this cooled off, I put my lotus oil in here. For this batch, ordinarily I'd put like 3 drops of lotus oil, but this is a little bit of a bigger batch, so I ended up adding a little more than what I would usually add to a smaller batch. I'm actually doing a double batch for me. So, all right, be right back. All right, I hope you guys can see okay. I've kind of got you at an odd angle here, but what I've got here is my dry incense blend. And I have added to that the 2 parts of acacia powder or gum arabic. That's what's white on top of my mix here. Oh my goodness. And I'm going to take my hands and just go through here and break apart any larger clumps that is formed. And what all that is where the it's just where the powders, the resins and things just kind of started to stick to themselves. I'm going to mix this through. See, look, that's got a little looks like sandalwood in that little clump, and that's the reason you want to go through and make sure all of your stuff is broke apart really well, because you'll hit little pockets of stuff and you want all of that mixed in. You don't want anything sitting by itself. Now, so this is all that I'm going to do right here, y'all. Just go through, break apart, and mix that together. It smells so good, y'all. Oh, and I've got my liquid ingredients sitting in my little mason jar right here beside this, so I can smell everything together. It smells so good. Alright, I'll be back when I get all of this stuff broken apart and mixed together. Alright, y'all, after you get it down into a powder as fine as you can get it, and if I could get this down finer than this if I put it on a sieve, and what you would do is put like a handful at a time in there and then just press it through, and you'd get a even finer powder, as long as your ingredients were originally powdered down really fine. So what we're going to do is make a dough out of this. So you're going to start like you're going to make biscuits. Make you a little dip in your powdered ingredients, and you're going to pour, or I'm going to pour some of my liquid right here in the center. And I want to get every bit of that out of there, because that's got my lotus oil in there. And I don't want to waste any of that, y'all. So, it's going to be hard for me to do this and show you all, but you've got this in the middle. Pretty much all you're going to do is fold your dry ingredients over onto the top of it, and you're just going to go around in a circle, and you're going to keep folding and mixing just like this, and you're going to work it until you get a dough-like consistency that you can actually work with, that you could take out and roll into balls. So I'll be back once I've worked this and get back to that, because I know I try to put this down in my lap so y'all can see, but I know it's going to be very hard because I don't have a very tall tripod. So I'll be back. Alright, y'all. So I'm hoping you can see here what the mixture looks like. Now, this, at this point, would be awesome. You could just spread this out like on a lined cookie sheet or something, and allow it to dry like this, and just a couple times a day come through and kind of spread it around a little bit, so a different area of it could be up, if that makes sense. Changing your surface area, in other words, just moving it around so it can dry. But this is not the consistency that I'm looking for. So actually what I'm going to do, I need this to be just a little bit stickier. So what I'm going to do is drizzle a little bit more honey on top of this mixture, and I'm going to add a little bit more gum arabic. Not a whole lot, just a little bit, y'all, because if you if you add too much, then your little incense balls, it's going to be a little bit sticky anyway with all the fruit and everything you have in here. Or I guess I should say my recipe is just a little bit sticky anyway. But I'm going to add, just drizzle a little more honey and a little bit more gum arabic. And I'll come back. We'll check the consistency and see what I think. Okay, this is better, y'all. See how that holds apart much better? This would be much easier to form into little balls. See that? And that's what I'm going to do. Not yet, though. Tonight is the second night of the full moon, so I'm actually going to cover this with, I'm going to put a sheet of plastic wrap over top of this, and I'm going to set this out. Then what I'm going to do in the morning is take and form little balls just like this. Actually, probably a little smaller than this, but y'all see how it sticks together really well? Little balls. This right here is actually a little too much. Probably half of this would be really good, but I'll probably make just a little bigger balls just so people can, if they would like, all you'd have to do is take a pair of scissors or a knife and cut this in two to make a smaller ball, or a smaller piece, I should say, to put on your charcoal. And that is what you have to burn these on, is a little charcoal disc, or put these in a resin warmer. That also works. Now, this right here would be the point to check and see if you like the way it smells. Now, this is going to change a bit. The scent will change a bit as this mixture dries and sits for a while. So what you can do is take like a little stick, or really it needs to be something metal, because otherwise you're going to get the scent of the stick when the stick burns. But get like, I'll show you guys, like this. Here, I don't want to get this in there, but I took a little pair of my tweezers and pinched out just a bit, and held it over an open flame, and it dried that mixture out a little bit, and it started smoldering for me so I could smell it, see what it smelled like, see if it had the scent that I was looking for. And it does. It smells pretty good. Like I said, this is one of several different recipes that I make. Now, once I get all of my little balls rolled out, you want to put them where they can get good airflow around them, because you want them to dry thoroughly. You're going to move these every day. So if they're all sitting like this, come and roll them on their side. Roll them on their side. You know, you want every surface area of this to face up at some point so that it can dry. What can happen, it's the same as with like cone incense. If you're sitting it so it can dry and it's just sitting on its bottom like this, the top and the sides are going to dry, but the bottom is going to have a little, it's going to kind of hold some moisture because it's not facing up and it's not getting the airflow around it, so it's going to dry a little slower. So you want to be diligent about turning your incense, y'all. You put a lot of hard work into making this. You don't want to let it mold. So turn it, because if it molds, you got to throw it away. Don't be burning something with mold on it, y'all. That's not good. All right. So once I get all of these little fellas tomorrow rolled out and set out to dry, I'll show y'all what they look like. All right, y'all have a good one.